What is next for marketing is a question that I get all the time. I would lie if I told you what really is going to happen. I'll tell you some things that I think are important that we have to think about that we don't pay enough attention to today, and that is this concept of experience architecture. It is, to me, completely fascinating in that we tend to market based on campaigns, based on messages, based on quarterly goals, but marketing acts like a switch even though markets are always on. And people have experiences with brands and businesses and services, whether they're designed or not. We talked about Google's zero moment of truth in the first video, and there are three other moments of truth that we have to really think about. First moment of truth, the second moment of truth, as they're so cleverly titled, and then what I had introduced in my book, What's the Future of Business, the ultimate moment of truth. So in the zero moment of truth, you go through discovery, right? In the first moment of truth, it's that opportunity when you find something and what happens in that moment. Are you compelled to buy? Are you compelled to look deeper into the product? Are you comparing competitors? And then the second moment of truth is sort of after the transaction. It's the experience that you have with the product. The ultimate moment of truth introduces this concept where in a social, mobile world where maybe websites aren't as important as they used to be, we now tend to rely on the shared experiences of others. So I'll give you an example. Amazon really sort of made that pervasive with their reviews. We saw it with Travelocity. We see it basically with everything now, is that people share their experiences. And people, consumers, customers, they tend to sort of rely on those experiences to make decisions because in their peer experience lies truth, or at least the assumption of truth. Otherwise, we're taking face value the words of what a brand puts on their website or marketing copy or clever slogans or what have you. But the ultimate moment of truth, that shared experience, is now the next person's zero moment of truth. And I'll give you an example. If I go to, say, search for a particular restaurant, I might start with Google to see what's in the area. But when I find a restaurant, I'm going to look at Yelp. I'm going to look at reviews. I might look at Foursquare. I'm going to see what other people think about this and what type of experience they had or what kind of tips that they have. Because from that, I get trust, right? Edelman every year releases what they call the trust barometer. And the things that we don't trust are politicians and executives. And it's not really a surprise, but the thing we do trust are people like us. Should be no surprise, yet it's not really driving our marketing strategy in order to go facilitate those types of experiences or design the experiences we want people to have and share. Instead, we let people experience it and share it and then don't pay any serious attention to it, even though it is the most trusted form of engagement there is, the shared experience of a peer. So earlier when I talked about the concept of an architect and experience architecture, you are designing the experience you want someone to have and someone to share. Essentially the product or the service or any engagement that you have with someone or the content, it all becomes an experience. And what happens next is ours to define. So when we talk about what the future of marketing is or what the next big trends are, I could talk your ear off about the next apps or the next networks or how notifications are going to become the new app because apps are now too ridiculous. It's like having 20 remote controls in your living room, yet we still have that today, which I got to figure that out. However, when we think about what the real underlying trend is that stitches everything together, it's the experience. And I think it's shame on us for letting people have an experience with us not really trying to design what it is. We convince ourselves that we're storytellers. We convince ourselves that we're the most creative marketers. And if you think about it, the best marketing in the world is to create the best product or service that meets or exceeds the needs that someone didn't even know that they had or they couldn't put words around. And when you design something like that, marketing and service and all of these things really start to take a whole new shape, a whole new life, a whole different approach, rather than trying to tell a story around something that you never even thought about what the experience would be. I'll give you a test. I ask people to always answer this question. Which company do you think offers one of the best experiences you've ever had? And it's usually the same companies. It's Apple, Zappos, Virgin, good handful, Nordstrom, good handful of companies that are usually up there. And then I ask them, what experience did you have? And what experience did you tell somebody about that brand? And the answer is always different because it's personal, right? But if you go back and you look at the marketing of some of those great companies, that experience is pretty much in alignment with what people say. It's intentional. And so to me, the future of marketing starts there. We all have to think about the experience I want you to have first and how you would tell that story. And I start to think about it like the way that Disney might storyboard an animation before they ever start to animate the movie. Because the story has to be told before it's told. And to me, marketers, I think, could really excel, become a whole different sort of level of valuable, or a whole different level of value to their organization, where marketing isn't just marketing. Marketing is the company. And to me, I actually think what a wonderful world that would be when we don't have to market or try to sell or try to deceive you, but instead try to inspire you with an experience that was intentional and purposeful. That's engagement. That's marketing. That, to me, that changes the entire game. A lot of people ask if there's a first mover advantage to the next big thing or the next thing. The answer is that history shows that yes. If you attempt to compete for the future right now, then chances are you're ahead of those naturally who don't, right? I refer to this as digital Darwinism. Technology and society evolve, right? You either adapt or die, or slowly die. Unfortunately, we're seeing that happen with a lot of big brands that all of us have grown up with, just simply because I think we took for granted what a brand was and what a brand means to a new generation of consumers, especially those living in the ecosystem. But there's also this idea of the second mover advantage, right? There's the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse always gets the cheese. And there is a lesson in there that teaches us that if we always try to be first to something, that we might miss the real opportunity. And for example, Elon Musk is not the first to market an electric car, but he is the first to really align it with the aspirations of his consumer. He's the first to sell it in an environment that really matches the needs and expectations of his consumer, his shopper. So he's changed the experience. It's a very experiential model. And to me, that is what the next 10 years of marketing and sales and branding look like. It's all intentional. It's an ecosystem, right? Tesla is building this world of which you navigate through it. And things like social objects and content and SEO and responsive websites, all those are just simply windows or throughways or escalators to just sort of move you around in a very natural and meaningful way. But there are lessons to be learned when you learn from the mistakes of others. So am I telling you not to be a first mover? No. I am telling you to pay attention to the mistakes and the successes of other companies. And in that, maybe this won't be the most popular bit of advice, but stop listening to your peers at conferences. Stop reading the 10 best things that companies do for infographics. Stop reading and sharing those types of stories, because you assume that those companies know the experience of their customer. We assume that they know the relationship that they want to have with their customer, but they don't. They're just marketing. It's an act. It's a series of actions to do stuff. But a lot of them couldn't really tell you what the experience is or what the experience that is shared. I'll give you an example that a lot of companies listen to conversations about their brand, and they might bucket it in a report around share of voice and sentiment. But I advise brands to look at the experience gap. Look at what you promise. What's your brand promise? And how do you talk about that brand or that product? And then go look at the shared experiences of everybody and see where there's alignment and where there isn't. So that second mover advantage assumes that the relationship that you want to have with your consumer and the relationship you want to have with your market and the experiences you want them to have and share, that's unique to you. And so you should look at that and be a first mover in that regard, and then be a second mover in what's next. So to me, the future of all of this, whether it's 5 years from now or 20 years from now, is really about being more human, but also being more of a leader in inspiring people to be part of your brand, part of your community.